What we've got here are what I like to call the knighted pieces. That's taking a piece and adding the power of a knight to it. Now this is a long-standing idea. It was first published in a book by Carrera in 1617. And I just happen to have a page pulled out of that book. The Rocco, the Centauro, that's one of the novelties. Cavallo, Alfino, that's the bishop. Donna, Re, Alfino again, Cavallo, and on this side the Campione, once again, Rocco. But the idea is really very simple. You know how a queen moves like a rook and a bishop combined? Well, why not have a piece that moves like a knight and a bishop combined? Why not have a piece that moves like a knight and a rook combined? Many people have made interesting novel pieces for that. In particular, Seirawan chess has that. This would be the hawk, this would be the elephant. And Gothic chess, which is sold by House of Staunton, they've got the Archbishop and Chancellor. This is really all you need to know about these variants throughout history, at least the 5 most prominent ones, starting with Carrera's and going on all the way to Seirawan's, the most recent. What I like about these are that a modern chess player can just look at these and instinctively know how they go. All you need is the chess pieces and you can just start playing because you're going to see right away. Extremely obvious to a modern player, and so that's what we've got here. By the way, these are good quality pieces. They're felted and weighted. They're made of boxwood. These pieces are stained a dark ebony colored black. These are just left the natural and then finished with a clear protective coating. So, very good state-of-the-art standard chessmen. And they're made to go with just about any standard chess set. You just need this booklet to explain everything to you. First of all, what could be more obvious? There's a diagram of how the 2 pieces go, the knight-bishop and the knight-rook. A little explanation of how they move, that's obvious, as I was saying. The board, 10 by 8 usually. Castling, usually done by the king moving 3 spaces toward the rook and then the rook coming around. And pawns, naturally, they promote to, any of the pieces they would normally promote to, plus the knighted rook or the knighted bishop. So, it's a very natural extension. You don't really have to learn anything new. You just have to start playing and get used to it. What this goes on to explain is Carrera's chess, Bird's chess, Capablanca's chess, Gothic chess, and Seirawan's chess. The biggest differences are how they are set up at the beginning. Seirawan has a really interesting twist at the end by using a standard board and entering the pieces as you play. But mostly you just go ahead and play with the pieces set up. So let's set them up. This board is made by me out of a couple of regular boards. It's just sawed, and if anybody who's interested, you can see that's a thin veneer of quality woods on the top, and this is a medium density fiberboard, which is what almost all boards are made out of nowadays. It's a very good substance. It avoids warpage. They've got strong adhesives that hold the squares in place now, so you don't get that warping and curving like if you've ever had a board that was more than 50 years old. You can see what kind of damage happens with the old technology. Well, this is the new technology, and my technology is very carefully sawing these boards so that they have 5 squares going this way, 2 of them, and putting them together with an adhesive strip like this, very strong stuff and very flexible, so it folds and it opens perfectly like that. So let's get a good view of this. Zoom, zoom, zoom. What I'm going to use are standard pieces. They're called the Reykjavik set or the Fischer-Spassky set. They're designed after the set that was used for the Fischer-Spassky and then the Karpov-Kasparov chessmen. It's very standard, and the king here is 3 3/4 inches, and these pieces could go well with the set having a king up to about 4 1/4 inches. About the height of the queen is the main idea because they have about the same power as the queen. I'll start by showing you Carrera's arrangement, because that was the earliest anyway that we have any record of, and that's from 1617. His special pieces are way out here next to the rooks, the knighted rook and the knighted bishop. The pawn here is not protected. You see that if you look at how the knights and bishops and rooks all go, that knighted bishop pawn is not protected in the initial array. And some chess theoreticians or designers consider that to be a defect. I should also mention that this set requires 10 pawns. I do sell these as a whole set and as just the special pieces and as just the special pieces and the special board, but in that case you still need to come up with 2 pawns, and that's something I can usually come up with because I've got a lot of standard chess pieces hanging around here. As I was saying, Carrera's chess has the strong pieces way out here. Bird's chess keeps the white king on the right, which is familiar to standard chess players. And Bird's chess has the powerful pieces in towards the center. That makes a different dynamic. Let's look at the protection of pawns, for instance. Protected, protected, not protected. So this also has that so-called defect where this pawn, I mean, is not protected. Now, in the 1920s, Capablanca worked on this game together with Emanuel Lasker, and each of them were very strong world champions. I mean, very high above their peers. So I would consider the two men together researching, what makes a good new chess variant to be just incomparable. His arrangement was a little bit different. It was sort of a compromise between the two. Now, he's got them switched sides. So the strongest pieces are spread out here. Queen, major piece, minor piece, major piece, minor piece, major piece. It'd be interesting to check whether the pawns are protected here. This one is not. So, interesting choices there. So, a player just kind of getting their pieces out has got to be aware of that, among many things. I mean, a new player's got to be aware of so many things that, just every time a piece is moved, it's going to be a whole new ball game. And that's a lot of what these chess inventors were after, because people who study the openings, study the familiar patterns, their knowledge becomes so rote that the creativity doesn't start until 10 or 20 moves into the game. And even then, it's a subtle variation on things that are already known. So this is a very direct way of countering that, pre-knowledge. It's just getting much more powerful pieces on the board, new moves, even more pieces than are originally used in the familiar game. And, there's no way you can play this game and just feel like you're playing regular old chess. And yet, with the very obvious pieces, you're not going to have any trouble knowing that, let's see, I'm bringing this guy out, boom, I'm attacking that pawn's defended by the knight-rook, etc. I'm bringing this piece out, boom, it's striking the king's bishop pawn over there. Now this has become rather popular. This is a 21st century version from 2002. It's called Gothic Chess. It's by a fellow named Ed Trice, and it's enjoyed quite a bit of popularity. It's been promoted, and there have been special boards and pieces made for it. Here, the king stands next to the knighted rook. He also stands next to the knighted bishop. But the queen gets bumped off of her throne in this particular variant. I think this was done very deliberately, because you'll see that now every pawn is defended by the rook, by the bishop, by the queen, by the king, by the knighted bishop, by the rook, of course. So, he has addressed that issue of the pawns being protected. If you look at the House of Staunton, you'll see the standard pieces they've created for these two. As I was saying, I really like the ones that are familiar to modern players, but it shows that the game has a lot of popularity when they're coming out with their own sets and their own pieces, and they're sold by a major chess house. So one more I'd like to show you, Seirawan's chess, but for this one you don't need the special board. Does this look familiar? It's just a regular board, okay? Just a regular setup. This is how you play chess. But these special pieces wait in the wings. Now this is Seirawan's innovation. All those pieces, all that power is going to be concentrated into a regular board setup. If you consider the regular strength of the pieces, what you're going to have is 3 pieces on the board with approximately the power of the queen on each side. It's very simple. Whenever you move a piece, say you just take this move like this, you have the option of placing one of these special pieces in that square where it came from. So suppose I move the knight out on my first move, and I place one of my knighted bishops there. By the way, do look at Seirawan's website. You'll see that he has very nice pieces, a falcon for this piece and an elephant for the other piece. Now, as I was saying, I like the standard pieces because you can see them right away, but you know, if you really want to get into that chess, you'll also want to see what he's been cooking up. I'll just move the white pieces to demonstrate some more. The pawns don't apply to this. You don't have to place a piece when you move one out. Whenever you're moving a piece off of its initial square on the back rank for the first time, you can place a piece there. Now, here's an interesting case. I'm going to castle. Can I place a piece where the king was or where the rook was? Yes, either one. And my instinct is to put the piece here because that's a good place for a rook and it's centralized. But I could have placed it there. If I had had 2 pieces off the board at that time, you know, the 2 special pieces, I could not have placed one on each. Only one per move, even if it's castling. So I'd have to choose who and which spot it would go on to. Aside from that, the pawns promote to the regular pieces or the special pieces. A piece cannot be placed in such a way that it blocks your king from check. So that's an interesting little, you know, technicality. Aside from that, you should know that if you do move all your pieces from their original positions, that was all your chances you had. So if you move them all from their original positions and then you still haven't placed your special pieces, or either one or the other, then sorry, it's too late, you blew it. You really have to keep in mind placing those pieces. All you need for this, you don't need the extra pawns for this, all you need for this are the special pieces and a regular chess set. They're actually a figure of a hawk and a figure of an elephant's head. So that's the story with the knighted chess pieces. Let me know if you have any questions. I really do appreciate comments and thumbs ups on my YouTube threads, and I really appreciate anybody getting in touch with me anytime through my website, ancientchess.com.